Right. Okay. So
Where's the trap?
right, 6 o'clock. We're going to make a start. Lot to get through. We'll start with apologies. The only apology for absence I've had is from Jacqueline Stamper. Okay.
Yes, that came through this afternoon. Yeah.
Okay, so having done the apologies, we're straight on to our presentation tonight. And tonight we're really pleased to say we've got Anne Oliver, who's the Community Engagement and Projects Manager at Age UK, back with us again. You may recall we had a presentation some time ago, but what Anne's going to do is two things tonight. She's going to talk a bit about the way that Age UK have had to change their operational model as a result of COVID. And then secondly, she's going to talk a little bit about some of the scams that are going on at the moment. So without any further ado, Anne, the floor is yours. And I should say, we're recording this meeting. So basically, if you don't want to be recorded, you should leave now.
Does that include me?
No, well, we need you. Okay, so if people stay, I'll take that as your assent to being recorded. Right, so Anne, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much indeed. Yes, well, before I start presenting, just to say thank you very much for inviting me along this evening. Can you all hear me all right?
Yes.
Sound quality okay? Good. That's always a good start. There's no adult children in the house watching Netflix tonight, so that guarantees a better level of comms as well. So yeah, thanks very much indeed for inviting me. I just wanted to cover a little bit this evening around a major project that we're running, which is a scams awareness. But firstly, just a little bit of recap on Age UK Lancashire, where we are now following COVID, I think, and then I'll talk about the scams, because there are some really serious issues going on at the moment around the scams. I'll try screen sharing because that'll keep me under control as much as anything. So we'll just check that that's going to share all right, and the sound shares as well. So let's just see. From the beginning, it's generally good. So yes, as James says, I'm Anne Oliver, the Community Engagement and Projects Manager at Age UK Lancashire. And so my role is very, very varied. A little bit about, just as a recap for those that aren't aware, Age UK Lancashire is one of about 140 local Age UKs across the country who all work on the ground in their localities with their own trustees, we have our own charity numbers, and we are independent of Age UK who sit in London, but we are affiliated to them. So Age UK handle the high level campaigning work, research work, and at the moment we'll be working with Age International in the Ukraine and do so overseas, but also sitting very heavy on Bojo's shoulders around the health and social care agenda and all other issues relating to older people. So they do the high level work, we do the work locally on the ground. And during COVID, things changed somewhat for us as an organisation. Like everybody else, we were forced to take on COVID security measures. Our staff, some of staff were furloughed. We had to close our charity shops, but a lot of those staff actually retrained very rapidly within a week and moved on to the telephone lines to support our staff. We didn't miss one day of delivery of services on our hospital aftercare services, our home help services, right across the county. So our crucial services kept going. And what we proved to ourselves and to our commissioners, to Lancashire County Council, the NHS, those paying towards our funding, that we were an exceedingly nimble, versatile, and actually very vital resource for them. And so when it came to taking people home from hospital, our staff continued as normal, full PPE. We managed to secure PPE with a lot of generous support from businesses, including a car garage in Preston, a Mercedes garage, who gave us rolls and rolls of plastic sheeting that they put in cars when you take it in to stop you getting oil on your seats. They gave us rolls of their plastic liners so that we could protect our staff and the cars. So we continued, we really adapted very quickly. What that showed that the NHS locally, the CCGs and Lancashire County Council, was that actually, as a charity, we were people that were really worth working with, who stepped up to the breach and actually continued to do work that actually their staff in many instances didn't. What this has meant in the long run, after coming out of the 2-year period, is that we've actually secured additional funding from the councils, from the NHS, and they are working with us now as partners forever more than they were prior to COVID. They see us as partners, not as a charity that to be used to do odds and sods of jobs for them. We really are now working in partnership. And so I think we've come through COVID actually a nimbler and financially secure organisation where many charities have struggled, and that was because of our resilience. So I'm not going to labour that point, but I just wanted to show a positive and just move on a little bit. So this is just our impact report from this year and this last financial year. And it just gives a bit of indication of the number of people that we've worked with across the county, about 13,500 people supported, often on multiple occasions, over £1 million in attendance allowance claims, about 10,000 phone calls. It'd be more than this because those are the ones that were logged. And
Is that it?
No.
and about 4,500 people supported following hospital discharge. So that includes people coming out of hospital with no or very little support at home from family members. So there may be instances where couples are living together at home, but actually the carer is the one who's been hospitalised. And so obviously the partner at home wouldn't be in the position to support them coming home. So we help people with all the practicalities of returning from home, ensuring they've got food in the house, prescriptions, that they have the smoke alarms are working, that they have the benefits that they're entitled to, and generally keep an eye on people for up to about 6 weeks when they come home from hospital. We don't do the personal care side of it, and we don't do the medical care. The reablement and the medical teams do that. We do the practical stuff that often gets forgotten in amongst it all. And in fact, we had a 40% increase in referrals over 2021 compared to the previous year. And that was obviously because of people going in and out of hospital because of COVID. So we support people to manage their long-term health conditions. And over that period, we distributed over 150 tablets, by which I mean of the technical device, electronic devices rather than pills, to isolated people to help them keep in touch with family and friends during COVID. That project started in COVID and is now a fully fledged project. We're about to start a project with Bay Medical, with their patients from April, which we'll be dedicating a day a week to them to help their patients get online, to use the NHS apps to reorder prescriptions and to have virtual meetings with their doctors. So that way, that's going to be a dedicated service for the patients in the Morecambe area, which may affect some of yourselves and family members. We also do hope. We've also delivered over 26,000 shopping and cleaning service visits. So that's through our home help service. And we've also supported people with dementia. So these are our core services across the county. And I'm just skimming through this because I did mention it last time. And all our services and details are on our website. But locally, the home help service is a paid for service to help with cleaning, shopping, laundry services. The day clubs, the local one is based at LL Village Hall and meets on a Monday and a Wednesday. This is a picture taken during COVID of an exercise class that was going on down there. It shows the partitioning that we used. Now they've come down, much to the delight of everybody. So day clubs can be self-funded or paid for via Lancashire County Council, and very much based on activity and fun and good food, I'm told. Digital inclusion, I've mentioned, this is a growing service for people across the county to help people get online, and we do have a small number of tablets for people who genuinely can't afford their own. Advice and information, that is essentially help with attendance allowance and similar forms. The Veterans Service, that's to support anybody who served a day or more in the armed forces or merchant services, and that is to help ensure that people receive the practical support, financial support that they might be entitled to, and we help take people out into the community to re-engage people with groups and clubs as they need it. We don't replace SAFA or the Royal British Legion, any of the other services. We work alongside them. Sorry, and I've just gone forward. So, what did I miss there? Dementia support. In the Lancaster district, we work with the Bay Information Hub, which some of you may be aware of. It meets alternate first Friday afternoons of the month at the Trimple Club and the Cathedral Community Centre in Lancaster. And that's a session whereby up to about 20 different local agencies turn up on the day, and people living with dementia and their carers can come along on a monthly basis to get advice and information and support, and it's very well attended. But we're here tonight for scams. Unless there's any immediate questions, I'm happy for people to ask questions, put in the chat box, however people want.
Okay, I'd keep going, and we'll pick up any general questions at the end. If that's
yeah, if people want to put things in chat, that's great. So, scams awareness. That's sort of why I'm here tonight. We've been very lucky to receive funding from Age UK National from Lloyds Bank Foundation. Lloyds Bank dipped into their proceeds of crime fund, and with 16 other Age UKs across the country, we're working very hard for the next 2 years to really raise awareness of the issues of scams and to try and prevent people from becoming scammed. One person every 11 seconds in this country is scammed. And so it's a huge, huge issue. And they reckon that only about 5% of people ever report a scam if they have been scammed. So nobody really knows the true extent of it. So I'm working with our advice and information team to work on a two-pronged approach. First is raising awareness online, prevention being better than cure. And we're providing one-on-one support for people either in their homes or online, who are either very nervous and concerned and want more information on a one-on-one basis, or have been scammed and are struggling either emotionally or financially as a result. So there's two different approaches that we can take to support people. So I'm just going to run through a little bit about what the different scams that are around at the moment and perhaps how we can help. And I think if I ask people to put their hands up, you probably find that just about everybody, if not everybody on screen, has been scammed, probably received a text. If you're on text, the chances are that in the last week, you'll have had at least one text scam. And I'll come on to those in a minute. So and hopefully you've realised it. So just moving on. So what is a scam? According to Collins, a confidence game or other fraudulent scheme, especially for making a quick profit. I have real odds with that, because the game, there's nothing game, it's nothing fun about the scams that are going around at the moment. And I rather think that they should be revising that. But fraudulent scheme, yes, scams are all fraud, just fraud, making a quick profit. So just running through some of the types of it, and I'm sure you know a lot of this. I'm sure in a lot of cases I'm teaching people to suck eggs, but please do bear with me, because hopefully there'll be some learning that people can take away. Telephone scams. I was introduced at a meeting the other day by a gentleman who said he'd just come back from holiday and his Wi-Fi wasn't working correctly. So he got BT connecting to sort it. Whilst they were outside fiddling with his Wi-Fi, his broadband, he got a telephone call to say, "Oh yes, you have a problem with your broadband. Please go onto your computer and type in, in this website, type in this information, and we'll take control of your computer and sort it out." Now, just at that second, unfortunately for the gentleman, BT Connect switched him off. So he couldn't click connect, and it was actually a scam. And the chances of him receiving a scam from somebody sitting probably in India to try and lock his computer and charge him for unlocking it must have been 1,000,000 to 1, but actually it happened. So, and the BT man was just literally outside at the time. So he actually truly believed that because of the coincidence of timing. If it had happened at any other time, he probably would have seen it for what it was, but it was a scam. So anybody ringing you to tell you that you have a problem with your broadband and they need to take control of your computer, please put the phone down, tell them what you like, but it will always be a scam. If your broadband's on the blink, you'll sort it out from your side with your supplier. Other scams at the moment, there's a lot of phone calls around and people being taken in by white goods cover. I don't know if anybody's had that, but people ringing up to say your washing machine, your tumbler dryer, your dishwasher has run out of its warranty, take out cover. It's not technically illegal, but you don't need it. And some people have taken out multiple covers. So some of them are complete scams, some aren't scams, but completely unnecessary, paying for stuff you don't need. Impersonation scams, people pretending to be your family member who's on holiday in Amsterdam and has had this wallet stolen and they need money desperately. As the old saying goes, where your family members are, where your friends are. They wouldn't be sending an email like that. And if they were if your son was in Amsterdam on holiday, the chances are you'd know that they were there or not. So anything like that, people claiming to be from overseas, from Hong Kong, telling you that you that somebody's died and that there's money coming to you. Again, not happening. Courier fraud is the second biggest fraud in this country, and that really surprised me. Probably that people actually fall for it. And courier fraud is where you're contacted by phone and as somebody says, we're ringing from the police because we're having a problem with your bank and the bank wants you to help assist in trapping the perpetrator in the bank that is being dishonest. We want you to see Mr. Rollins on screen giggling here. We want you to go to your bank and withdraw £1,000 and meet us with the money. And you'll be doing us such a good turn, and the bank really needs you to do this. Now, if you counted to 10 and really thought about it, why would the bank, why would the police be doing that? Why would they be doing it over the phone? Why would they ask you to do this? It just, every single piece of logic in your mind would tell you that that's an absolute load of bunkum. But people do, and it is after romance fraud, it is the second largest drainer of individual coffers in the country. So please, just think about it. The bank will not ring you and ask you to give you your switch card, your CVV number on the back, the 3 digits on the back. If they ring you, they know who you are and they know what your bank account details are. They might ring you to say, we've noticed some unusual activity on your bank account. Mr. Morgan, were you in Swansea at the weekend, and did you spend £2,000 on a new shirt? The chances are that the answer would be no, because I doubt David would spend £2,000 on a shirt. But it's all right. I'm using you as butt of jokes, David. But I know I can get away with it. But the point is, they noticed unusual activity on the account, and they contacted you to ask you if you had spent that money. It may be that you'd been away and you had a bit of a financial splurge. It might have been a family wedding. It might have been 250 quid in Swansea at a cash machine. But they are ringing you to check whether you spent that money. That is a perfectly legitimate phone call. They haven't asked you to give out any of your financial details. If, however, you are the slightest bit concerned, I would always say that you're putting the phone down and you're going to ring back on the phone number on the back of your switch or credit card. When you pick up the phone to ring the bank, you always check that the actual line is clear, that you've got the brrr sort of noise, because what scammers will do is if they've initiated a phone call, they will keep that phone line open. So when you dial the number, you think you've got through to the bank, when actually you've just got back to the person who made the phone call in the first place. And that is quite a common fraud. So please beware of that. So long and short of it is, the bank will never ask you for your details over the phone if they've rung you. And don't give out your number to people you don't know. So SMS, so service providers, again, that goes back to people purporting to be from your Talk or BT or Amazon. There are some really, really nasty people pretending to be from Amazon, and they can get very, very aggressive, telling you that you owe money on your account, etc., and that you've got to pay it, or you've got to press this number and pay. Amazon would not be ringing you like that. You know what's happening. If you've got an Amazon account, you're in control of your Amazon account. You go away and check your Amazon account independently. But they can be very, very nasty. So SMS scams, I'll come on to those and show some in a minute, what they look like. But before I go on to that, I want to tell you about the scam I came across today. It's the first time I've come across it. And my first email afterwards was to Radio Lancashire, because I need to get this out quite quickly. Apart from all the other scams, there is some horrible woman ringing people and saying that they've been contacted about offering them a befriending service. And would this person like a befriending service? And they're targeting really, really vulnerable older people. And then when they sort of suck them in, they say, oh yes, but our service requires a payment of £50 because there's so much demand for it. The £50 is then sent off and they never hear from the person again. Now, there are perfectly legitimate befriending services that charge for their services. Just Company in the Loon Valley is one of them. It's a perfectly legitimate company offering companionship to people, and it's a paid for service. The difference there is you pay for it and you get it. In the instance with this person, you sent your money and you never heard from them again. Fortunately, it was picked up as a scam and the person did get their money back. But the mental health strain on that person, who was already very vulnerable, was huge, because they were already lonely and isolated and would happily have paid, actually, for a befriending service. Ironically, and I just think that that's particularly cruel. And I will be going on air on Thursday with the mission in Wiltshire to talk about scams, and particularly that. Rogue traders, so doorstep scammers, never accept people on the doorstep. You don't need your driveway retiled. You may have lost slates off your roof in storm, whichever one, take your pick. But get the work done by a reputable person. You all know people, recommendation locally is the best, or via Lancashire County Council Safe Trader scheme. but please do make family members aware. My mother-in-law's sister in Wales, on the anniversary of her husband's death, was scammed out of £5,000 by traders who knocked on her door. On that day, she was vulnerable, and so they marched her down to the bank where her husband had worked the whole of his working career, and they gave her £5,000. Now, why nobody questioned it at the time, why they didn't say, you know, Pat, you're going on a good holiday, that's an awful lot of money, you know, to be taking out in cash. It wasn't till she actually got home and had given the money that the bank actually did think to contact her. Cutting a long story short, a scam was set up because the people thought they'd try and get some more money out of her. And the police became involved, and they actually intercepted the people when they came to try and get more money out of her. So that had a bit of a happy ending in that they were caught. Caveat emptor, buyer beware. It's not illegal to charge too much money to do a job. But where harassment takes place, or there is not a contract provided, then the police can take action, which they did in that instance. So please be aware. For people who've been scammed like that, very elderly, frail people, often it leads to a really, really huge decline in health and well-being. And in the case of Pat, that is her real name. She very quickly went into a care home and was dead within 2 years. And that is very common. Distraction burglary, please be careful. If you've got 2 doors to your house and somebody comes to one door, make sure that you keep an eye on the other one. So people knocking on the door, talking to you while somebody else goes in the back. Romance fraud, the biggest cause of financial loss and emotional issues in the country, where people contact over Facebook, befriend people, and then say, oh, I want to come and visit you, but I've got no money, please send me £50 for the train fare. And then they never turn up, and they never turn up. And £10,000 later, they still haven't met this person, but they have been suckered into a relationship that they truly believe you know, it is valid. And so very, very difficult one to handle, to support people through, because obviously they have to then recognise that they have been really, really suckered in, you know, in a major way, which is very, very emotional for people to accept. I'm not going to go on a lot more about the different online scams, except be careful of e-commerce sites. If you buy things through eBay, etc., at least then if the goods don't turn up, you're guaranteed to get your money back. And then postal, we'll look at some of those. Clairvoyance, people pretending you know, to read your fortunes. Lotteries, if you haven't played the International Postcode Lottery, you ain't going to win it. And the same is, you know, the same for the UK Postcode Lottery. So catalogues, fake inheritance letters, other ones that you may have had from Hong Kong saying you're the only surviving person of this family that we can find, etc. So that's one of very, very typical. Postal one, they're always personalised to you with your name, and you've won it, and send £20 and we will release £147,000. You'll never see your money, but what you will get is an awful lot more letters coming through of the same style. And it does lead to an awful lot of people, particularly vulnerable people, getting onto what's called a suckers list. And I'll show you some bags of post shortly by way of an example. This is an example of a clairvoyancy one. You know, you're going to get everything and life's going to be a bed of roses, and send us this money. Doorstep scans we've covered. I'm not going to run the video because I know we're a bit short for time here. But we'll look at some examples of telephone and text scams. Have people had the one, we attempted to deliver your parcel today? See James, I can't see very many of you, but I can see James and David.
Yeah.
Who isn't Gillian Rollins, I don't think, but maybe Mr. Rollins. Hermes, we attempted to deliver your parcel today, but was unsuccessful. To reschedule, click here. Your parcel is awaiting dispatch. Please confirm the £2.99 shipping fee via Hermes. A gentleman was walking his dog in the Midlands somewhere, and he was waiting for it before Christmas. There was a lot of this parcel scam going around before Christmas. He was waiting a parcel from his daughter in Australia. He's out walking the dog. He gets this one through, there's a shipping fee to pay. He clicked on it. He was out with the dog. He was expecting it. He wasn't really thinking about it. 35,000 quid that pressing of a button cost him. He managed so far, he's managed to get £19,000 back via the bank. And the village where he lived cumulatively lost over £100,000 to that same scam. So somehow they'd obviously must have got phone numbers in that area, or perhaps it was just coincidental, perhaps it was just being replicated all over the country. And we just know about that one village, but that one village lost over £100,000 to that same scam. I'm going to say it a lot of times tonight, just count to 10. If you get anything through on your phone, the text or on the telephone or whatever, just count to 10 before you do anything about it, because what the scammers want is people to be distracted, to be panicked, to be making their tea, doing the washing up, and not walking the dog and not really thinking about it. So if you count to 10, I'll do your 20-second Nelly the elephant, as you do when you're washing your hands still for COVID, and then think, am I really waiting for parcel to come? Well, I tell you what, I'll go onto the shipping site of the company that I've just bought it off and check what's happening with it. I will not click on that link. A good way of checking as well is that on text messages, particularly, they tend to come from a text number, an 078 whatever number, rather than the company name on them. And that's a good way of just very quickly checking. HSBC alert, request for new payee mystery balance has been made on your account. If this was not done by you, click here. My son got that one in the middle of a show at the Grand Theatre one night, and he showed it to me. I said, Tom, on ours, it had Santander. I said, that's a no-brainer, Tom. We don't have any Santander bank accounts. So it can't possibly be. But we do have HSBC. So it would be very easy for my son, who's autistic, to see that and panic and press that button. And goodness knows what would have happened then. And it wouldn't really have mattered with Tom how much money they got out of his bank account. They probably have more in his than mine. It would have actually been the emotional impact that it would have had on him, how stupid he would have felt for doing it, and that would have been the most dangerous one. NHS, you're eligible for a COVID pass. Again, you press on here. Well, you don't have to pay for a COVID pass, but that's what you'd end up doing there and not getting one. Nobody pays for COVID passes. There's another one going around, which my son also had, which was you're near contact with COVID. Press here to get a test kit. Well, it's not even on track and trace, so there's no way that could have happened. And either way, you don't have to pay for test kits. Well, not yet, anyway. So again, think about it. I'm just going to click on this little thing here, see if it works for me.
This call is being forwarded from British Telecom. In order to inform you that your internet and landline connection will be terminated from today onwards, please press 1 in order to connect to the technical team and fix up the problem, or press 2 to continue for the termination process.
So if you don't count to 10 and think what a load of cobblers that is, you could very easily press one of those buttons and then get sucked down the line towards having your system blocked and having to pay to get reconnected.
This call is
some of the online ones. James, how long do you want me to?
We really need to wrap it up now, so if you just finish off very quickly, that'd be good.
Yeah, okay. So online examples for you to have a look at. Please do beware. Just very quickly, cyber security. 3 random passwords is the police recommendations now. Please think about things as being random. Write them down if you need to, but just make sure it's that where it's kept is somewhere that other people aren't aware of it, that might find it. And multi-layer authentication. I don't know if people understand multi-layer authentication, but that's really about when banks or people like the gas board send you through a second PIN number to put in onto their pages before they release any information to you. So and so really that's we've covered most of it there, but that's stacks of information that one lady received through. We're working very closely with all of these agencies, with the fraud squad, with the cyber crime team, and it really just want to get the message out there to spread the word, but also if you are aware of people who have struggled, get in touch. And our one-on-one worker, who is an ex-police officer and an absolutely lovely lady called Wendy, will work with them through the issue. And if people are getting a lot of harassing phone calls or being really upset by them, and a lot of people are getting them at very early in the morning, I have access to a number of free, very good call blockers that we can provide for people and fit them up. So please do refer people to us. And as I say, if you just pass out the word to say count to 10 before you do anything. It's called the red zone, when you just react without thinking. Count to 10 before you do anything.
Right, and that's great, Anne. So are there any questions for Anne? If you can just take your presentation down, that would be great.
Yeah.
So any questions for Anne? Doesn't seem to be. I mean, I think that was probably because it was a very sort of comprehensive presentation and very helpful. I've just got one observation I'd like to make, Anne, if I might. I was interested to see that part of your funding came from Lloyds Bank Foundation. And of course, one of the issues with the whole sort of fraud industry is that the banks, and you alluded to this in your presentation, the banks are sometimes a bit slow at picking things up themselves. So I think there's a certain irony that the banks are funding. It's good, but quite a lot of the stuff I've read about this, there have been a number of scams where the banks have made it quite difficult for people. But as I say, it's just an eye. So any other questions anybody's got for Anne? No, well, if I can just thank you, Anne. I mean, that was very informative, and I think this is now your second appearance here. So hopefully we might be able to get you back next year to talk about something else or give us an update on Age UK. So on behalf of the group, thank you again for your presentation. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, and do take care all.
Okay.
Thanks, Anne.
I'll leave you now.
I'll catch up with you later.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
so moving on, we've got the minutes of the last meeting that are circulated. Are people happy with those as a true record? I'm not seeing anybody protesting, so I'm going to assume they're a true record. Matters arising, I don't have any that aren't on the agenda, but any other matters arising that anybody else wants to raise? Again, I'm not seeing any hands, so we'll keep going. Community transport strategy, just a quick update on that. We did have a meeting, a very useful and successful meeting. We're in the process now of trying to organise the next meeting. Amy, because of work commitments, is having to take a sabbatical from the chairing of this group for 3 months or so. So for those who are going to become involved, you're going to have to put up with me for the next 3 months, but thereafter it'll be Amy. We're about to put out another news release to try and attract more people into the group, and that will contain the date of the forthcoming meeting. So look out for that. Any comments about the transport group or any questions? No? Okay. Tourism. you recall that at the last meeting, there were quite a lot of comments about tourism. And we agreed at the end of the meeting, we try and see what sort of interest there would be in establishing a tourism group. Now, again, I'm happy to say that we have had a meeting. Unfortunately, I couldn't get to it, but I'm going to ask, and we've circulated with the agenda a copy of a summary of what we said at that meeting. But John, I'm going to ask you at this point just to say a few words about what happened and where we're going.
Yeah, thanks, James. It was an excellent meeting. There's certainly a lot of enthusiasm shown, and there's a lot of work which has been done in the past, which needs bringing out to look at. David put together an excellent short summary of the conversation, but and we have another meeting on the 16th. But what I'm hoping is by then you will get all those members who came to that meeting will get a fuller summary of all the information which has been sent in by the participants at that meeting, so that we've got a basis on which to start work. We all accept there is a necessity to make some proper proposals to City Council about improving the tourism offering of this area. So 16th of March, if you weren't at that meeting and would like to be at the next one, please contact David so that he can put you on the mailing list.
Yeah. I think that's a useful overview, John. I suppose it's maybe just worth saying that in some ways we're probably going to adopt the same approach on transport, on tourism, as we did in transport, because when we set the group up and we're looking at the terms of reference for transport, it very rapidly became apparent that we as a group couldn't really write a transport strategy per se. But what we could do was bring influence to bear on those that could. And I think it's probably going to be the same approach that we're going to take on tourism as well, because I think there's a general feeling amongst people who are engaged in the group that there's been a deficit in terms of the level of attention and detail that both the city and the county have applied to this issue at present. Any other questions or observations on tourism anybody wants to make? Yeah, Brian?
I have a large number of comments. Maybe it would be better if I sent them into the group.
Yeah, that'd be good if you could, Brian.
Go through them now if you like, but
well, we've got a couple of minutes, if you want to sort of just give us some headlines.
I'll bring out some key points. One is that I think that Lancaster, as a city on a river, ignores the river. It does nothing for it at all, and it is an asset there, and it needs improving, and not do things like building student accommodation on a prime riverbank site, and not having trees all along the river so you can't see it from the cycleway. And similarly, the canal ought to be used, is rarely mentioned. And if we are district-wide, I think we need to bring Carnforth in, which is probably a unusual town in the area because it actually has a very large tourist population, with all the caravan sites and things nearby, Pine Lake and places like that. In the summer, a large part of the population is in fact tourists of one sort or another, or visitors. So anyway, there's a few headlines, if you like.
That's very useful, Brian. And I don't know if you're able to make the next meeting, but you'd be very welcome to a more detailed debate with colleagues about those issues. Are there any other comments or observations?
Well, I'd just like to make a quick response to Brian. Over the last couple of years, the Civic Society has realised with the greatest of delight how we can make the City Council jump when we start issuing press releases. And And so, you know, it's a weapon and a tool. And I am sure that when we have some genuine proposals to put forward, the use of press releases may result in some action. So it won't be a passive committee.
No, absolutely. Well said, John. So if there's no other comments and tourism, I'm going to move on to projects update. South Lancaster, as we discussed at the last meeting, the council are moving in now to initiate work on their area action plan, which will be a statutory document. We haven't had nothing's been sort of released on that thus far, but we are keeping an eagle eye out on that. Canal Quarter, quite interesting. We discussed this at the last meeting, and I think, Brian, you'd made I hope I'm not sort of misquoting, but I think you'd made an observation of the fact that there were now some consultation documents on the website, because I'd said I hadn't seen anything. I had a look following the meeting, and what in fact had been posted was not a consultation, but a follow-up document. Probably around at this time last year, you may remember that we submitted some comments on the Canal Quarter single regeneration framework, strategic regeneration framework that they'd published, and made a whole range of comments on that. What the local authority then did was they converted that into a strategic planning document, which is a statutory document. Surprisingly, they didn't actually do any further consultation on that. They did the single regeneration framework. What do you think? And then they took all that stuff, put it into a statutory document, took it to the council, got it approved, and posted it on the website, which I thought was a bit surprising the way they did it. Nonetheless, most of it was pretty good. The one omission and deficiency in it was the one that we had identified last time round, and that was the absence of any real firm proposals for social or community-led housing. So I spent a couple of weeks engaging in debate with council officers about this point. Long story short, I got fed up, and we launched a press release. I'm going back to John's sort of point now about the power of news releases, which basically called upon because I get into this mind-numbing debate about how a planning document wasn't in place to do this and blah, 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 blah. I really didn't care. All I want is the local authority to say, we own some land in the Canal Quarter, and we're actually going to offer some of preferential terms to pump prime and enable social and community-led housing. So we put that out there. Thus far, we've had no response to that, but we're going to continue to keep pushing.
James, can I come back to you on that? Because it looks to me at the moment as if both Lancaster Guardian and the City Council are adopting a new tactic towards what we're doing. Because that press release, it took a few days, but it was put out by Lancaster Guardian. And I remember noticing it and sending it round to everybody in the group, just to say, look, it's there. I had cause to look at it again a few days later, and I was quite surprised that there was actually a reply from Gina Downing, actually in the text, which it certainly wasn't there before. So they've obviously either the council got in touch and said, we'd like to comment on this, or the Lancaster Guardian have gone to the council, which it appears they're doing at the moment, saying, we've had this press release, what do you say about it? Because I've noticed in one or two press releases where comments from Caroline Jackson and other people have been added into the press release.
I'll have a look at that and see what she said, and I might respond again. So
I thought you'd like it.
Yeah, all good. I mean, seriously, what this does is it puts us on the map. The more I'm going to come on in a minute, there's something else that's put us on the map. And then Eden North, again, it's got the planning consent, which is great, but it needs the money. So I'm going to stop at that. But are there any questions or observations on any of the projects that we've mentioned, or did any other projects?
Just to tell people that relevant to the South Lancaster housing, the new an outline proposal for the new road scheme from junction 33 up to south of the university campus, and then heading north into town. It is now being released, so that is on the County Council website. It's not detailed, but it gives you an idea of what's proposed.
I mean, it's interesting that, Brian, because originally the County Council thought that road would be of sufficient strategic note that it wouldn't actually require planning consent, because there's a special process for very strategic projects where you don't need planning consent. Fortunately, that was not the case, and the government wouldn't go along with that. So there will be a planning application, and we will be looking at that, and we will be making some comments about that. But you know, we have to be a bit careful, because one of the things that we've consistently argued for is about improvements in the transport infrastructure around Lancaster. So we just need to have a look at it.
There is a park and ride proposed there as well.
Yeah,
that's a way of intercepting traffic.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll have a look at any other comments on that. No, right. Well, I've got an ALB, and then I'll see whether there's any other ALBs. And it's really again on the news release front. A couple of weeks ago, Richard Rawlings emailed me to draw my attention to the fact that Great British Railways were running a competition for the new headquarters, and suggesting, wouldn't Canforth be a great location for that? So a few of us had a bit of a chat, and I wrote to the Chief Executive of the City Council saying, we've heard about this competition. Are you putting in a bid? We think Canforth would be a great location for reasons X, Y, and Z. That was over a fortnight ago, and I've had radio silence from the Chief Executive of the City Council since. Haven't heard a word. Because we didn't get a response, we decided to take matters into our own hand. So what we basically did was we launched a press release, but I should say David launched a press release. He's did a lot of work on this, and basically said, we think this is great. We think Canforth is the best location. Here's a petition, quick, please sign it. Interestingly, that was then picked up by David Morris MP, who phoned David to say, this is great, you're doing this. I'm backing this as well. I'm going to use your petition to strengthen my argument in the Commons when I talk about this. And I think it was last week, David Morris raised it in the Commons, and we get name checked in the Commons that we'd run this petition, which was probably a first. And then this morning, David Morris and Caroline Jackson, the leader of the council, were both on Radio Lancashire talking about this. The issue seems to be that the county have decided to do their own thing, and it looks as though a bid is going to be made for Preston rather than Canforth. We've reacted to that and said, look, it's got to be Canforth, must be Canforth, for reasons that we've articulated. And we're hoping the City Council are going to put on their own bid, but there appears to be a bit of a question mark over that, because we haven't had confirmation they are going to do it. But again, I raised that because it's another good example of where we've picked up on an issue and we've pushed it because we believe that it's be a genuinely good thing for the district. And this time round, we got not just local publicity, but some national publicity. David, do you want to raise anything about that? Adam, because you've been really at the centre of this initiative.
Only a couple of little bits. David Morris has been very reactive to it, and we got the petition, parliamentary petition, read in the House last week. Immediately prior to that, he'd already set up that we could get a parliamentary debate, which is going to be tomorrow afternoon. I'm hoping that's going to be televised in actual fact, so we should get the footage from that to put up. But yeah, you know, we've it appears to me that the City Council were doing absolutely nothing. It was, and the reason there's a little bit of reticence by Caroline, I've had an email from Caroline to say that it's very late hour for them to try and get a proper bid all done professionally as it should be. The closing date is the 16th of March. I didn't respond to her, but I felt like responding, saying, well, this was started off in October of last year. So if the City Council hasn't been prepared for a bid until now, somebody's been asleep at the wheel. And I think that's, you know, but we've got the petition up to 500 people that have actually signed it now. That will be going direct to David Morris. The total figure will be going direct to David Morris tomorrow early afternoon, just before he sits up in stands up in the House of Commons or the Westminster Hall to do the debate. So yeah, that's where we are at the moment. So fingers crossed. It could happen.
Watch the space. Any questions for any of that? Richard, take Richard first, then Brian. Richard, you're on mute. Richard, you need to unmute. Richard, we can't hear you. You need to unmute.
Right, that's it.
That's it.
There is a lot of competition for this, as you can imagine. I mean, I know Barrow is putting in, but other places like York and Crewe, not to mention Preston. There are aspects of the parliamentary request which we do meet, which is a historic railway town. We have got a lot of land at Carnforth. Carnforth has access to the M6 motorway. What also is requested is very good communication by rail. Now, Carnforth hasn't got that. Lancaster has, with 2 trains a day to London, 3 to Glasgow and Edinburgh, regular services to Manchester, and the biggest use of the station between, I think, Preston and Glasgow or Edinburgh. So I'm anxious, if Lancaster put in a bid, that they put it in as a Lancaster bid, you know, emphasising the communications of Lancaster, which is also on the M6 motorway and the West Coast Main Line, and Carnforth as perhaps the base where the offices or the buildings and so forth can go with the railway history, so that we have both things and we're not left lacking with one piece missed out.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. Brian?
I think you need to produce a case with some details in it. Carnforth has the disadvantage that it is not on the West Coast Main Line directly, which for rail people might be desirable. But it does have one advantage, big one, and that is that the old ironworks site is right next to the station, within walking distance. It could be developed both as offices and also as accommodation. And the advantage of that is that it would be built on top of some of the present activity there, which is delivery vehicles. And so that would have the advantage of getting rid of a lot of vehicles down Market Street. So the people locally would be very happy. So I think you've got to make a case as to why you need one rather than the other.
Yeah, well, that useful point. But Carnforth, in my judgment, has another advantage. This competition, the way it's going to operate is that Great British Railways are going to shortlist a number of locations across the country. And then they're going to have a public vote on what people think are the best location. Yeah. Now, they've said it'll be non-binding, but it will actually influence. Now, I actually think a lot of people across the country have heard of Carnforth because of Brief Encounter, right? So, it's probably got more of a profile and more of a romantic attraction for some people. But I have to stress, we can't make a bid. The bid has to come in from the local authority. Yeah, and that's in the rules as well. So as David said, we're doing all we can. We've given them the arguments to run with. We don't really know whether they're going to make a bid or not, but it's not for the want of trying on our part. So we'll see what happens. Anybody else? I see Roger's putting something in the chat, which I'm just trying to look at. Right. Okay. Right. Any other comments that anybody wants to make? No. Anything else anybody wants to raise? No, nobody's shouting at me. Well, if that's the case, I'm going to close the meeting. Next meeting is 1st of April. It's after 12. It'll be after 12 noon, so there'll be no jokes. So that'll be all okay. So anyway, well, thank you all for coming, and we'll see you all next time. Okay, bye just now.